And let's bring in the play-by-play voice of the Texas Longhorns and a Texas High School Football Hall of Famer. We are joined, as we are every Wednesday, by the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer. It's Craig Way. Hello, Craig.
Where in Austin, Texas, this week, people only felt sick. They weren't actually sick.
Maybe I contracted Longhornitis. That's what's going on. I guess let's start with the most important question, which is the last one that I sent to Max. So I'm going to ruin all these things.
Fine.
You were not with us in Longview, sadly, for what was a really fantastic Lufkin and Longview game as part of the Fox Sports Southwest broadcasting. Said you were in D.C. So the most important question everyone wants to know is how was the food in D.C.? What was your culinary fare in our nation's capital?
Okay, all right, I'm going to give you the rundown on that. First thing I'm going to tell you is I did DVR everything that Fox, and I've watched every minute from Brock Brownwood all the way through, every single minute of the stuff in Scoreboard Live. And, just watching, I could tell already you were already starting to get the throes of the flu. Somehow, just watching you, I could tell you weren't feeling good or something. I don't know. No, it all looked really good. It did, and I wish I could have been there, and I'll look forward to being back with you guys this week. Now, the culinary stuff. Friday, I went to a baseball game, went to the Nationals game, and got invited to be in the stadium club where the words unlimited food and drink are a dangerous set of words to mention to me. So there was a variety of stuff. After the game on Saturday, it was up to Baltimore for crab cakes on the Inner Harbor. So that was nice.
That's
So between all of that, the baseball game and doing some of the monuments and historical stuff, it was a great weekend other than the 8 hours at FedEx Field. Otherwise, Mrs. Lincoln, how did you enjoy the play? That's how that whole weekend.
Yeah, I got to tell you that aside from the whole point of the trip, I feel like your trip was really good.
Yeah, there you go. Other than the primary objective, the other stuff went well.
So then let's turn our attention back to high school football, and we've had a little bit of time to digest week one of Texas high school football. It's always dangerous to go and make broad proclamations, but overall, what did we learn? Even if the answer is nothing, what did we learn in week one of Texas high school football?
Well, and you and I talked about some similar things on Monday, and I think some of the stuff that kind of, emanated to us was that North Shore, as we thought, is going to be really good. I know you felt like Katie has a question mark or two. I would have that same question about Denton Geyer, because I thought Geyer would have been in a better spot. I thought Alito would win the game. I did not think they would win the game in the fashion that they did. So those were a couple of things that kind of really became apparent to me, that maybe also that this may finally truly be the year that Cedar Park has knocked off its perch in its 5A standings, because Hutto looks good and Cedar Park was dominated defensively by a good Vandegrift team, but I think the fact that they were pretty much dominated in the game kind of set off maybe an alarm or two. Those were a couple and that Lufkin is going to be a legitimate contender, as we all thought, to win a 5A state championship with the way they played against a really good 6A team in Longview.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, kind of segues into another conversation I wanted to have, and we talked about it briefly on your show on Monday, but I came away, and now that you've seen the Longview-Lufkin game, I came away feeling really good about both those teams. And it's so odd that a team can be 0-1 like Lufkin and kind of get their heart ripped out. And I think I'm feeling more positive about Lufkin than I otherwise would have been.
Yeah, I when a 5A team plays that well against a 6A team, win or lose, and I know there's regional rivalries, and they were both 6As for the longest time, and they've played 18 gazillion times over the past decade. I get all that. Still in all, we're talking about talent and we're talking about players, and for them to fare that well, sure, that's gonna catch your attention. Consider this for a minute, Tep. Tomorrow night, Thursday night, Cedar Park will play Cedar Ridge, two really good teams. One of them is going to be 0-2 coming out of that. So, we look for things that kind of, alarm us or set off set off the notifications and like, hey, look at that team. That team's doing well. Wow, what and then we also look at the other side. I remember we were doing that last year with Cedar Hill after the first 2 weeks. Going, oh boy, So there's always one or two schools like that go through that, from time to time. And this particular year, those two come to mind. But there are other examples like that across the state.
So then I guess that that kind of segues into my next question is, we hear sometimes, and I think we say it enough that we start to believe it, that there are just some programs that traditionally they just start slow. They just, they start slow. One that springs to mind is Rockdale. Rockdale, of course, you'll remember last year started the year 0-1, and then I believe 1-2. They ended up having 3 losses on the year, en route, by the way, to a state championship. So do you buy the idea that there are some teams that we just have to that we just kind of shrug our shoulders and say, oh no, that's just Rockdale, they just start slow, or is this or is there more reason to concern and we're giving them more of a pass than we should?
Well, there's a couple of ways to go with this. First of all, to your general overall deal, yes, there are some programs like that. I do think Katy is one of those, by the way. We've mentioned that a couple of times. Remember when Katy was 1-2 and we talked about that, and it proved to be a little bit exaggerated, and they got their act back together. But Lake Travis has had some of that in the past. Now, Lake Travis looked pretty solid last week. They have a little bit of – they're pretty deep at running back, which is good because Sean Brown-Nixon is going to miss this week. He's out with a foot injury and don't know how long he'll be out, but they've got some depth there. But, they have historically been, even in state championship years, a team that looks sluggish even if they won their season opener. So that's another example of one. And in the Rockdale-Giddings game told me more about Giddings than it did about Rockdale, to your point. To your example, I think Rockdale will be fine, but we were expecting down in the Central Texas area Giddings to be good. How good in that really tough district that they're going to be in this year? Well, maybe we just got an indication of that.
It's Craig Way, the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer, joins us every Wednesday here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation, #TF Today. Craig, for all the knee-jerking, and we talk about, it's just one data point and wait for more time, is there now one team or 2 teams or 5 teams, I don't want to limit you, that after week 1 you're looking at them and saying, okay, I think maybe we've underestimated you a little bit. It's time to take you a little bit more seriously?
Vandegrift is one of those. Yeah. Based on like what I mentioned, what they did against Cedar Park, and they're not in the district with Westlake and Lake Travis anymore. That's the good news. The other side of that is they're in a district with Cedar Ridge and Hendrickson and the other Round Rock schools. But I think they can hold their own in it. We'll certainly find out, and I think they'll take care of Colleen Ellison this week. By the way, that's one. Mason is one, and Mason's a top 5 team. We knew they were a top 5 team, but Marta's a top 5 team. Refugio's a top 5 team. You can make other cases for other 2A schools being in the top 5, but for them to beat a solid 3A program in Wall, that told me something. I think a little bit about the Punchers, even though we knew they were going to be good.
I want to take that exact same question and flip it now. Is there a team or 2 out there that raised a red flag for you, that maybe the way that they played, because I know we talked a lot on Monday about how I think I'm a lot more interested in how you played as opposed to the result. Is there 1 or 2 teams out there that suddenly you're tapping the brakes a little bit on?
Well, I mentioned Geyer only because of the way it went, and we're on, and it's a big week for Geyer against Cedar Hill because. That you don't want to see. Put it this way: even if they start 0-2, I don't think there's any reason to panic. But if they start 0-2 and no points scored and 80 allowed, after losing 40, then you do have some cause. I think they're going to be okay. But put it this way: because of what happened last week, I take a little closer look at them. I think that's certainly notable. Probably. Them as much as anything. I think West Orange Stark is okay. They are who they are, and they lost to a good or a solid 5A program in Nederland. So I'm not really that concerned about them as well. But you think about the teams that lost in week 1. You thought, Okay, this was a state-ranked team. And I will say this, too. You know, I had Todd Dodge in studio this morning talking, and I like to ask him about Riley and Carroll as much as I like to ask him about Westlake. And he said he called Riley after Carroll beat South Grand Prairie and said, "Congratulations, you're 1-0. You've already accomplished something I will never have accomplished at Carroll," because he started 0-3. Now, he only lost 11 games in 7 years at Carroll, but he did start 0-3. And he tells this story about how one of the long-time Booster Club people and council leaders and whatever came up to him after a Booster Club meeting on Monday night and said, "Coach, I've always had your back. I told you that, and I always will have your back. But the rest are getting kind of close." So you know, they turned it around after that and went on and did not lose again until the quarterfinals his first year, and thus the dynasty was born. But he said they were sluggish. I remember that was an 8-8 ball game as it was starting to grow late before they pulled away. You know, I don't know how much we'll find out in great detail about Carroll this week against Heritage. Maybe we find out a little more the following when Permian comes to town, and maybe we learned a little bit about Permian in that loss of DeSoto. That game, by the way, told me more about DeSoto than it did about Permian. So, you know, those are ones I think that we'll all keep an eye on for sure.
And then finally, Craigers, we're closing in now on week 2. It starts tomorrow. Give me which games tickle your fancy most this week in a slate that I would say is probably a little bit thinner than the week 1 mega slate that we had, but it's still chock full of pretty good games. Yeah,
and I mentioned the curiosity element of Cedar Hill Geyer. I think there's something there just to see what's going on there, and his Geyer's okay. I'll tell you, the one that they're talking about that's going to be the big one down here is Liberty Hill Hutto, because we're going to find out more about Liberty. Liberty Hill is number 9 in the state in the AP poll. They're an outstanding 4A program. They're an outstanding 4A program. They're going to play an outstanding 5A program in Hutto, but this is a real battle of contrast with the way that Liberty Hill just loves to grind you into the dirt and just punish you on the ground, and Hutto just the opposite with their electric attack and Chase Griffin and everything, and you know, whoever controls the theme and the tempo of that game, I think that game, one way or another, I think is going to tell me more about Liberty Hill perhaps than it will about Hutto.
I think you're exactly right. He's Craig Way. You can catch his stylings on High School Scoreboard Live, 11 o'clock Friday night on Fox Sports Southwest. Craig, looking forward to being back in studio with you, partner.
Well, so am I, as long as you shake the flu before you sit next to me.
Yeah, we'll see.
You know?
Yeah, we'll see what happens. You may have to do. Max has got a towel over his face. Maybe you can do the show like that.
Flu mask.
The flu mask.
We're one of those.
Thanks, Craig. See you Friday.
You bet, Tap.
There he goes, Craig Way, the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer.